And I think it was Michelangelo who said, the image is already there. He's just chipping away at what it's not. And that in some ways is this journey, right, of self-discovery, of self-realization. Muji says, step into the fire, it'll burn away that which you are not. And I really feel that in this process, because many people come with a expectation. They want to be a certain type of man. They might have role models, etc., who they base it on. And the more that you said the word authenticity, vulnerability, the more that we can recognize actually that those parts are projections, for example, and that to really truly be ourself, we have the shadow, we integrate those aspects, and we love the parts that, like you said, life brings up. And so a big part of what I'm offering as a coach now is this journey from victim, which many men and women, children, all of us can relate to, the drama of life. Oh, woe is me, the victim, the perpetrator, the rescuer, right? How to transmute that story and become the victor, rewrite our story, empower ourselves by challenging, by questioning, by creating, and ultimately to become the vessel, which is just a blank canvas, like a child, a hollow bone as some cultures define it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Going Out, Looking In, the podcast about the big questions of life, personal growth, and spirituality. My name is Maxi, I'm your host, and today we're talking about men's work. Guys, we're talking about the divine masculine, the divine feminine, polarity, healing, inner work, outer work, and the shadow, the light and the shadow, and everything in between, the human experience, intimacy, integrity, healing. I mean, I could just go on. And taking in an inventory right now, when tuning back into this episode, I personally took away a lot from it. I received a lot of guidance and wisdom and healing from this conversation, and that's why it's beautiful. Today I'm speaking with Peter Bennett. Peter is a men's work facilitator, also from Sacred Sons. He is a personal coach, somebody who is working with people, assisting them in their personal healing journey and the alchemy and personal transformation. He is a conduit for transformation and the wisdom keeper. Somebody who I have first come in touch with through, I believe it was the podcast on Danny Morel, the Higher Self podcast, and I was just like, holy shit, like this guy, he's just spitting wisdom, like he's opening his mouth, it's just like this source of like brum, you know, and like everything so organically just like came out so intuitively with such ease, and his whole sort of demeanor is playful and light, but then also very deep and on point and sincere, and that is what made me just like go, okay, I think I gotta talk to this guy. And so it just happened, you know, the universe again, that we bumped into each other at Sacred Sons Convergence in LA, and I was just like, oh my god. And then when I met him, I was just like, dude, like this guy's glowing. Like, you should see his eyes. He has like a very beautiful aura and energy, especially when you meet him in person. So anyway, that all being said, I was excited to conduct this interview, and it was a beautiful conversation, very naturally arising, and I brought a lot of me into it as well, you know, and that's the beauty of these conversations, that I can just also use them and sort of not use them, but just bring all of me into it. Just as within Sacred Sons as well, all of us is welcome, and we bring all of us as men into these containers, and this conversation is a container of some sort of my self-expression and also some part of my healing. And so that was beautiful, and it just showcased how safe I felt with Peter. And that is something that, you know, I don't know if you can learn that, but he certainly just has it, you know. And so I'm very, very grateful for him to come on and share his light and presence and his wisdom, and that, you know, just see and hear for yourself, you know. That's what comes up for me. So with that being said, as always, I wish you beautiful insights and so much love from my heart to yours. And this episode with Peter Bennett. Right, Maxi checking in, Mannheim, Germany, checking in with a lot of movement internally and externally, in between worlds. Just touched down in Europe a couple of days ago, feeling my ancestry alive here, old stories arising, new intentions being set. So all of this, the melting pot is being stirred, man. It's being stirred up. And I'm navigating that to the best of my abilities. But the shadow is present. It's sitting right here. Oh, it's at the bus, man. It's right next to me. So very present with the shadow. Bringing that into the check-in, but gratitude for me being able to witness it all. Yeah, very aware with it, sitting with it. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Gratefully received. Shoo-wee. Aloha, broha, bukaye, brother Peter, checking in from Bethnal Green, East London. To be honest, brother, I'm feeling conflict at the moment, internally and externally, very much feeling the collective energies of the world presently, feeling the shift of seasons as well. My internal conflict is that I'm forever in bloom, I am forever growing, forever changing and shifting, and with this new season of winter arriving, there's resistance to slowing down, there's resistance to hibernating, there's a tiredness that's within me of just such a busy year, so much gratitude for all that has been and all that will be, and just a reminder that even when I'm not 100%, I can still step in further, I can still have some effect, some impact on my world, on my loved ones, on my community, and that it's okay to rest sometimes and just be a bit of a hermit. And with that, I am in. She.
Jagrative. Thank you. That's beautiful, man. Wow. Yeah. Oh, this it's just again, it's aligning, man. I think I'm not because it's a stand-up desk, but we're on eye level, on heart level, on eye level here. I feel it. I feel the weight, and I share it. And I'm looking forward to dive in with grace, man, and with with compassion and empathy, and it's I'm looking on my couple of notes. It's just thoughts. It's things that come up when I'm tuning into the guest that I'm speaking with, and with you. There's just a couple of words, just a couple of topics, and now, man, you've mentioned it's conflict. It's sort of resistance. It's maybe also some weight and heaviness. And man, that's so alive. So I'll take it as a segue into moving into the space of how we can address that, how we can face that, how we can meet that imperfection of, being in the sensory suit, with all the imperfections, with all the needs and the desires that are arising. And still we know so much, there's so much happening up here. We know, we read the books, we go to the retreats, we do the stuff. And then there's life. There's people, places, and circumstances arising, man. And I've been listening to you today. You've been with me, interviews and stuff you shared, and I've been in your energy, and I'm soaking up the wisdom, and I'm like, oh, dude, yes, man. But I know, that you mention it, you're going through it as well. There's resistance. So how do you meet it? How do we meet it? How do we face it?
Yeah, you used the word grace,
Yeah.
and I feel that very presently at this moment. The idea that to get out of my own way, to move from the head to the heart, is a dance of embodiment. And that's something we do with Sacred Sons, is the pathway to embodiment, masculine alchemy, and how so much resistance, so much stuck energy, whether it be trauma, right, whether it be just stories, conditioning, programming that's been handed down, how to transmute that in a healthy way, a conscious, intentional way. And just to bring it back to my check-in, this feeling of conflict is I'm just so aware of it from being here in London, from the protests that just happened recently, pro-ceasefire in Palestine, and how that's been met by a lot of pain. A lot of people out there who are genuine, they're really hurting, and for them to speak their hearts isn't always greatly received by the many, and recognizing that we, men's workers, conscious men, the healthy masculine, the mature masculine, are kind of the few at this stage in history. And it's okay for me personally to feel a little bit alone from time to time, because I know I have my brothers on the end of the line. I have men like yourself who I can speak to on this public forum and ultimately get it out. And I think that's the first step when it comes to resistance. It's just to speak it. It's just to express it in any way that feels right in that moment. And I used to journal a lot. I used to journal every day, and that was such a good way just to take stock of where I'm at mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, but particularly today, the way that I work with it, and you spoke a bit to ancestry there, is just to be aware of what's present in my blood, what's present in the heritage that's been passed down. And that's why this particular war in Israel and Palestine is so relevant and so raw. My mother's Ethiopian, by the way, of the Middle East. My grandfather, my grandfather's father were nomads. They would travel through the deserts of the Sahara teaching literacy. And so a huge swathe of my DNA, over a third actually, is Middle Eastern. And I've been aware of how this past year of dreams and songs and just family connections have been arising that have made it so much more poignant, this idea of peace actually in the Middle East. I can share a little story if you're interested, a little story time with Peter. So when I was in Gabon,
Please,
I was doing an initiation this past May, working with Iboga, a plant medicine, an African plant medicine that I've been called to work with since I was a teenager actually. And I was finally out there, I was finally in the bush working with a master, no electricity, no running water, far away from home, no connection, no way to escape actually, which was quite scary. And I had a very just mind-blowing, life-changing experience. And one of the main things that came through was dreams of young people, particularly in the Middle East. I had this one that came through of a young boy going around the world and putting flowers into the rifles of soldiers and calling for peace. And this one simple action caused a chain reaction and caused men and women of the military around the world to lay down their arms. And this is where I'm at with conflict, brother, is that acknowledging that it's within us, acknowledging the darkness, the shadow, and actually that is a part of the light, that without darkness we would have no light. And so knowing that it's within us, knowing that these forces aren't just external, it isn't them versus us, it isn't a conspiracy per se. It's that once I can get my house in order, once I can acknowledge those pieces of me, those warlike pieces, the fact that on my father's side I have a lot of bloodshed, a lot of horrific actions and human rights violations that were done to my people and by my people, once I can integrate that and recognize I am too the slave and the slave master, I can truly be free and liberate myself and others. So yeah, there's a lot of internal work that is on the precipice, shall we say.
Yeah, received that. Thank you. That picture, oh man. Oof. Putting the flower in the rifles, oh my God. Yeah. And I'm coming from Germany, so yeah, talking about the weight and the responsibility, my lineage as well. It's carved by it. It's carved by conflict, especially with the Middle East, especially with you know, in our case, it's the Jewish population. We've inflicted. Oof. It's just that there's actually not even words for it. It's a feeling that is so deep within me. Such a dark mass that is like, I don't know. It's been, I don't know. It's boiling up inside, and you cannot escape it. You just can't. And there's places. I've been living on and off in Berlin for many years, and it's just the horrific energy and the just horrible things that humans did to each other. It's alive there, it's present, it's vibrating, and if you're sensitive to it, you can use it. I try to use it to the best of my abilities, but man, there will be days where it's just heavy. There's no alchemy possible sometimes. It's just heavy. And so I feel it. I feel it very strong when I think about my grandma, when I think about my grandfather losing an arm at war, returning home, bringing that pain back into my family, laying it on my dad, him laying that pain onto me. You know, this is real. You know, it's right there in my face. Like I can feel it every day. How I show up with people, with men, with women. Like this is present, and it's so. Yeah, I just wanted to speak into it's like so close. Like I can see right through this glass of pain. And it's just the teardrops are just like coming in, and I'm somewhat protected, but sometimes they just hit me right in the face.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, brother, because I really feel that in so many men who arrive to the events, to the trainings that we do, and recognizing actually that it's a microcosm of what's happening outside in the world. And the more I've been able to see like that glass of pain, as you called it, the transparency, the vulnerability in others, the more I've recognized that that's something that we're all dealing with actually, and that there's so much judgment. There's so many people out there just seeing what's on the outside, seeing someone's opinions as if they define a person's stance, a person's values. And yet like deep inside us all, our essence of love, of unity, of joy, of bliss is actually like the baby that was once born, free of any conditioning, free of any story or programming, right? Like we were just a blank page. And the more I recognize and see people as a little baby, you know, the less I'm drawn to condemning someone just because of something they believe or have said or back, right? So this is one thing that can be so beneficial. You spoke about it. It's like actually some days it feels like there is no alchemy. It's just like I'm stuck with this, but just sitting with that feeling, right? Just sitting with something that someone said, something that's triggered me, for example, doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to change overnight, but just being aware. Awareness is the first step, right? Perception. How is it that I'm receiving this? How can I sit with this instead of what I've done so often? And I'm sure many people can resonate with this, but numbing, escaping, turning to my phone, turning to content, comfort eating, right? Seeking intimacy, whatever it might be that takes me out of myself, brings me out of my body, out of the emotions in my gut, into my head, so I can just be away with the fairies. And so, yeah, there's a responsibility, like you say, for us to just acknowledge and recognize that this is where I'm at right now. This is my lot in life, and to be okay with others being there too.
Oh, man.
Easier said than
This is
done.
the most, yeah, it's just the most, like, I just again and again and again, like I don't say it in every episode, but now I have to. It's the most meaningful thing I've ever done in my life are those conversations, because they're just just always like the relationships we have are mirror, right? And so are those conversations, and it just hit home for me in so many ways. And I wanna speak on it. Like I don't pull any punches with where I'm at either, like here. And so, you know, the thing is, like I'm doing this Sacred Sons work, and I love everything about it. It has given me so much in such a short amount of time, you know. I'm just coming back to back from interviews with the brothers, from the check-ins, from the community, from the containers and the love, and staying with them, like physically, you know, being in the brothers' spaces, you know, and living with them. Man, it's just been absolutely incredible. And then there is like, and I wanna ask you this. So basically, I feel there is this image that is being subconsciously shaped of the man that I want to be. It's shaping up like a sculpture, man. I'm like sculpturing it, you know, like I'm hammering it in the granite, and it's getting more and more shapes and shades and different sort of layers, and it's getting more and more beautiful and whole. And oh my God, you know, like I'm showing up with integrity and authenticity and vulnerability and taking responsibility and accountability and all of that, addressing the shadow, you know, stepping in, all of those beautiful things. And then there's life, and I just spot the gap of where that image, where that statue is standing and where I'm at. And it's a spiral starting, you know. It's like I'm not there yet. So why is that? You know, why is there this discrepancy? So I'm like, yeah, I just what would you, when you hear that, maybe I'm not the only one, but like how can we face something like that? Because man, it's present for me. It's present.
Well, I can relate, brother, first and foremost, and I have a question for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
This man that you want to be, is this who you are? Is this your essence, ultimately?
This is very powerful that you asked this. Because no, it's not. It's I literally in the preparation for this, I was seeing this outside sort of version of me and where I'm striving towards, and then it just like it dropped into me sort of like this. So what about Maxi? Like where? So is there like a version of this thing that is actually sort of not external but internal? Like can I find this somewhere? Like and then shape that sort of like to become whatever version that should be. Yeah. So that's that's how I can answer it, man.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And I think with these ideas of like personality, a vision, for example, they're constantly getting refined. And that's why I really love that image of a sculpture, right? And I think it was Michelangelo who said, the image is already there. He's just chipping away at what it's not. And that in some ways is this journey, right, of self-discovery, of self-realization. Muji says, step into the fire, it'll burn away that which you are not. And I really feel that in this process, because many people come with a expectation. They want to be a certain type of man. They might have role models, etc., who they base it on. And the more that you said the word authenticity, vulnerability, the more that we can recognize actually that those parts are projections, for example, and that to really truly be ourself, we have the shadow, we integrate those aspects, and we love the parts that, like you said, life brings up. And so a big part of what I'm offering as a coach now is this journey from victim, which many men and women, children, all of us can relate to, the drama of life. Oh, woe is me, the victim, the perpetrator, the rescuer, right? How to transmute that story and become the victor, rewrite our story, empower ourselves by challenging, by questioning, by creating, and ultimately to become the vessel, which is just a blank canvas, like a child, a hollow bone, as some cultures define it. And that is just to vibrate the frequency of what is. And so I hear you, man. Yeah, of course, there's all these ideas of grand schemes, my greatest work, and how I'm going to achieve this. And yet at the same time, part of our journey is actually to recognize that none of that really matters. And we will be what we are in this moment regardless. And just to love that.
So, you know, we're talking about the man, we're talking about this this version and how we can become it, how we can move towards it and find it within ourselves, right? So I guess I wanna just open up the room, the space, to just let you fill it with whatever you feel in that moment right now. Needs to be said, needs to be spoken about the context, for me, but also for all listeners to understand, like how did you become the man I'm speaking with right now? Like what's the journey? What's the journey been? What feels like needs to be said, you know, for you, for us to understand that.
I want to honor your share about at times not feeling like the man that you envisage, and actually that is something that I too have really sat with, particularly in my early 20s to late 20s, what some call Saturn returns, right? Is that correct? The idea of when
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, this whole like crisis. Yeah, identity crisis, right? I have all these ideas, all these plans, all these wants and desires, and actually when put into action it doesn't always materialize, and so when I was in my 20s I kind of got lost. I call it the long dark night of the soul, and I was at university studying anthropology, like very much the interest that I have today of people, of place, and the impact of culture, traditions, learning more about my traditions through the University of Manchester where I was studying, and at the same time was dealing with a lot of family issues, the suicide of my cousin when I was in my 16, 17, and the subsequent substance abuse of my mother, dealing with that grief and being the man of the house, the old school adage of men don't cry, so having to hold it down, having to be that pillar, that rock, and yet at the same time feeling really shaky in the foundations. This man who I idolized, my cousin who I looked up to, who's a judo champion, who is like the light of our family. Everyone loved him. The community used to, you know, gather around him, and to see him quickly turn from being this bright light to being ultimately someone who suffered deeply with mental health, mental illness, schizophrenia. And so it was like very present in me that I have this propensity in my blood, in my heritage, to get lost in the source, right? This idea of not feeling stable. And when I was at university, as a result, I self-medicated with drugs and alcohol, partying, became a party promoter, putting on like club nights and things like that. So thrown on top of all the booze and the substance was a lack of sleep, bad nutrition, just all the things that now are the cornerstones of my health and well-being were completely out of alignment. And so I was lost. I found that even in interactions with my closest friends, that I wasn't really there, that I felt disconnected, that the words I was sharing felt inauthentic. They felt like lies. It was like, why am I saying this? I kept catching myself, my dialogue in the back of my head. Why am I showing up like this? Why do I feel so isolated? And I'd isolate myself. I would spend hours in my room and just lock myself away from the world, and then we'd go out and I'd party and drink to get a feeling of normalcy and able to like be my large loud self, right? And as a result got in lots of trouble with like authority figures, used to get in fights all the time with bouncers and got arrested, and nearly got killed in fights. Went to the A&E, accident and emergency in the hospital here in London a few times. Got a big scar, 17 stitches in my head where I got attacked by a gang. And realised at that point in my life that I really had to make a change, that I had to shift gears, and I couldn't just be a victim, even though I didn't use those words at the time. And so I took some authority and flew to the States and ended up doing an internship in New York, and was like, now I'm out of the situation, I'm going to be so much more myself. And even then, those pieces were still present. I wasn't necessarily doing the booze and the drugs like I was before, but I felt completely discombobulated. And so went to Peru. That was it. There was something deep inside of me that was calling me to work with plant medicine, with ayahuasca, actually. Most likely because I was really into Terence McKenna. Used to read and watch a lot of his stuff online. And I went to Pucallpa in the jungle, took a boat down into the Amazon and lived with the Shipibo Conti for a few weeks, actually. Not a lot of time, but as an anthropologist and observation, I was there to kind of soak it all up and partake. And that was the beauty of this opportunity. It wasn't like I was just in a center drinking and on my phone. It was like completely out of my norm, out of my comfort zone, and living with them, eating with them, hanging with the kids, playing football, teaching them English in their shack that was a school, right? And as a result, like, I started coming more and more back into my heart and realizing that what I'd done all that time was close myself off. I wasn't allowed as a young boy to be sensitive, to be vulnerable. My father had passed down this story from his father and his father's father, that to be masculine you had to be stoic, you had to hold it all in, that you weren't supposed to show emotion, you weren't supposed to be weak. And it was beautiful because I started to recognize that actually that is strength. And so I went on my journey from Peru through the rest of to Bolivia and then back to the UK, started to figure out how to express myself, got into the frame of work that I've been in for ever since, really, which is expression, self-expression. I found my voice through media, working in TV, working in advertising, started to cultivate this image of a man that I wanted to be. And since that 10-year journey, like I've fallen off, I've come back on, I've recognized that media industry isn't for me per se, that there's a lot of kind of things that don't resonate with my values, more of a kind of surface level. How are you being seen? Is it about the big car and the nice house and the, you know, expensive watch? For me, like actual abundance and beauty of one's essence is seen through their eyes, it's seen through their words, it's seen through their actions, and not necessarily the material. And realized that actually now in my late 30s that I have combined the corporate, the conscious, combined this media presence with being more in this magical, shall we say, presence of expression. And the way that I define the work that I do is, and the man that I am, is self-inquiry first and foremost. It can be meditation, self-care, which can be movement, and self-love, which for me is like manifestation. And so those three areas of physical, mental, and energetic, sexual, spiritual health is really at the core of my soul, my expression of beingness. In a nutshell.
How were and how are you met by people and places and circumstances from that journey of, let's say, going out of Peru, going out to those places, looking inside, taking in an inner inventory, doing this work and returning, as you said, bringing it, you know, you bring it back, you don't hide in the cave, you bring it back, you share it through your own vessel, and through your own embodiment. So how was that being received? And did you have to let go of a lot? Was there resistance?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like many can probably recognize that coming back from a life-changing experience, an initiation, a rite of passage, a part of me wanted to preach, a part of me wanted everyone to be on board, and I quickly realized that actually it's not about what we tell people, it's about how we show up, right? And so as opposed to everyone like open arms, yeah, you're changed, it was more like, oh, what, you think you're better than us? I mean, not that people said that verbatim, but there was a sense of like, who is this guy? Who do you think you are telling us, you know, what we're doing is wrong? And so I've realized to make adjustments and just to be like, you know what, honor that everyone's at different stages of their path, and that there is no wrong, there is no right. And for me to really like show up is to support people with where they're at, and that's what drew me to being a coach and working one-on-one, working in groups, doing the leadership training as well, is that actually like I do have something to share. I do have a purpose now, which is the main thing that I offer and I guide people towards, is what's truly in your heart. You know, how can you be of service to that which truly breaks your heart, which caused you pain, to bring back some form of alignment, or just some form of like cohesion to your life story.
What are you proud of?
Pride's an interesting word, bro. I'm always a bit cautious of using pride. For me, it invokes ego, actually. So I'm glad, I'm grateful for the times that I've been resilient, that I've broken the pattern, the old story, the shadow, for example. So one piece I would say that, you know, from day to day, it's an experience. It's still something I work towards, is being able to say no, actually, to the old habits, to the drinking, to get drunk, to be out of my head, to completely lose myself, so that I didn't have to feel, but I didn't have to acknowledge the parts that were hurting. And in that, like I express, I'd fight all the time. I'd get arrested and nearly killed. And so I'm grateful that I've been able to say, no, actually, I come first, that I'm not going to poison my body with alcohol. Although there is a recent story where I did go to a wedding, and as I was really like feeling a little bit of hurt and pain at the time, I drank where I probably shouldn't have. And it was the first time I got drunk in a long time, and I realised, oh, like, that piece of me is still present, actually. And this is what I meant about the shadow, and we spoke about this before. It's like, actually, like, I'm not ashamed of the part of me that when I get drunk maybe doesn't remember, gets blackout, right? That I may say something to someone that I feel like is funny at the time, but actually they took offense. Whereas if I was sober, I would never have said that. And so now it's like, yo, that's still who I am. I can't ignore or run away from that. And if anything, I need to be aware, just like an addict, that that's always going to be there. And to be like, okay, I'm going to work towards actually bringing that part of myself home and loving that part, and ensuring that if it feels cool to come out, it's in a healthy, safe space.
Can you oh, that's so beautiful, and rings like, oh yeah, all of us, you know, there's a different story. I got very recent examples of just that, not tied to alcohol, but other parts where, yeah, literally just not showing up the way that I intended to. Is there like just a tiny something you can give us, you can share with us, how you bring, as you said, that how you bring this home and how you alchemize it, how you turn it into something, sit with that in a loving way to integrate it? Is there something you can share, like a practice?
Yeah, I love embodiment, full stop. And for me, barefoot on the grass when I'm feeling pressure, when I'm feeling stress, when I'm upset, when I'm depressed, when I'm going through it, when I'm feeling uncomfortable, right? Even if I'm boozing, which I don't do often, if ever, I will make sure to take myself out of a situation, to take my shoes off, to go on the grass, to stretch, to move through these emotions. So for anyone who's feeling something, right, breath is a simple thing. Barefoot on the grass, breathing in and out, holding your breath for 4 seconds, breathing out for 4 seconds, and doing that for at least 10 times will help ground you in that moment. And there's just simple things, like I love to do some yoga moves. I mean, even a handstand, even if you're just supporting yourself up against the wall, up against the tree, flipping your perspective, the scenario on its head, is so useful for getting out of a stuck mindset. And people aren't, well, at least in my experience, I didn't do that enough. Like, I remember going to parties and being like, I feel really awkward, I feel really anxious, and still like drinking through that. Whereas when I got hip to this, I was like, oh, yo, on my way to this party, I'm going to go to a park, and I'm going to do some stretching, I'm going to do some breath work, I'm going to do some handstands, and I turn up fresh, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, like ready to rock. And it's so obvious that all it took was a little moment for myself, a little self-care.
Right. One of the words I wrote down is embodiment. It's funny that you know, as always, it just organically just comes in. How beautiful that is. Something I'm very much moving into myself as I looked into this stone wall sort of manifestation of a technology that allows me to speak with you, you know, this thing for 10 years now, nearly 10 hours a day at times, through intense study periods or work periods. And so I feel like it's literally like a vacuum of the soul. Like it's draining my prana, man. It's draining my life force to a certain degree. And I feel like when I'm looking back, I'm turning 30 next year. In the next 10 years, this device is going to play a different role in my life, a less important one in the sense of that I don't want to use it as frequently and as much and depend so much of my life and my income that I'm earning, make it dependent on this thing. So embodiment is the antidote to it. Basically, I feel like right now, and I'm sort of like, how can I also really, because I'm feeling so good when working with my body and utilizing it, also when working, literally, like when I'm working with the body, when I'm using it to move stuff around physically, emotionally, spiritually, but then also with work, like I'm literally using that. And so it's a big topic, the embodiment, but it goes into really sort of many areas in life. So I would ask you, how did it affect, because this is something that I wanted to speak to you about, how did it affect your relationships to get more into the body?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, particularly with where you're at, because just as I was turning 30 as well, I had a realization that I didn't want to be working in a desk job. Even though I had a really great job, I was working in media, I was a TV presenter and was earning good money, and on the surface, looked great. My nieces got to see me on the television and things like that. I was like, I felt trapped. I felt like a bird had its wings clipped. And I realized that as soon as I was able to feel my emotions, because that's what embodiment is for me. It's the idea of like clearing the channel, right? Being able to express what's coming through in an authentic, vulnerable way, and not just to shove it down. So many people I see working that 9 to 5 are just living for the weekend, and it's like I can be on autopilot Monday through to Friday and then let my hair down on Saturday, Sunday. And I was like, that's not the lifestyle that I'm cultivating for myself. It's not just about money, it's not just about status. And so in terms of the way it affected relationships, I just realized what it was that I was looking for in connection, that I was called to be around people who shared values, who were able to go to a park as opposed to the pub and actually do something that nourished and nurtured this sense of self, this empowered stance that I've been taking ever since I was in my late 20s. And in those years that have since come through, I've been able to call in brotherhood. I've been able to call in sisterhood. Like a community internationally is arising as a result of making a choice to feed my soul, to feed myself. And I feel like in your case, you're doing that. You're doing these podcasts. Yes, you're in front of a screen. And yet, even in that time in front of a screen, you can take moments to go outside, right? You can stand at your desk as opposed to sit at your desk, right? You can do some breath, some cold immersion. You can meditate. There's so many hours in the day. We don't have to work hard. We can work smart.
Psst, hey, this is just a very brief reminder. If you enjoyed this episode thus far, you can do me an enormous favor. Go over to your podcast app and rate Going Out Looking In with 5 stars. Also, while you're at it, make sure to subscribe and follow the podcast. It helps us in ways I cannot even begin to describe. Thank you so much for your support. Let's dive straight back into the episode. That's it. I mean, after this time now, returning to this world, I've been traveling for more than 2 months, just returning, getting my feet on the ground. I feel like I will certainly do things differently, fundamentally, but I'm also and this is also one of the things that, where the shadow is very present, is technology is enhancing that big time for me. It's my gateway. It's my gateway drug. It's my gateway way of numbing myself. It's right at the fingertips. It's easily combinable with an excuse. Well, I'm doing work. Like this is part of my work. This will be the intention of opening Instagram, and then I, half an hour later, end up watching motorcycle race or something like that. Like completely not related to actually what I wanted to do. So, it's like light and shadow are so close to each other, isn't it? Like it's just, and especially, how it's constructed. Like these things are just, They're just fucking smart and cheeky. They just know how to pull you out and how to tickle your little, like, you know, your tiny little urges and needs and desires that you sometimes have hidden and compartmentalized somewhere, and you put them away, but then they're like being, I don't know, they come right to the surface again.
Yeah, commodify attention, man. They commodify your energy, and I hear it. Keep going. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, no, that's all I had to say about that. Like, it's really, really alive within me, and I feel just like this unbelievable urge of, like, it's like I always come up with this image of like a sports car that's standing in a garage, which is like, basically, I've been building this car now with unbelievable power, which is sort of like me as a man, or like in also like being on the self-initiated rites of passage, going to the US, Ireland, and the UK, doing all these online interviews, doing all this men's work, doing all of this work, and then returning to now drive this sports car, you know, get the horsepower on the street, there's a German saying, which is basically, how can you get the horsepower on the street, you know? And I'm like, I'm ready, you know, I got the racing suit on, I got my boots, I got the gloves, I got the helmet, I'm ready. And so, like, now, okay, so what is it exactly I'm gonna do? Like, am I just gonna keep watching, like keep looking in that thing and trying to make my marketing business work? Or is it really sort of like, after also living and spending time with like an arborist of Sacred Sons, Ian, a beautiful brother of mine, and living with him and working with him also physically and with the trees, I'm just like, oh my God, I want to be an arborist, man. I just want to spend time with trees and trim them and prune them and just like, oh my God, this is beautiful. But I feel like this is like the energy I'm coming out of and I'm navigating this from is basically, it's like a very reactive state, you know. I'm feeling like, there's something off and like I need to fix this now. So what is it like in terms of like a job description that I can find that they'll address this void within me, you know? Yeah. So, okay, an arborist. Well, I'm just gonna go and, I don't know, become an arborist. And I'm just like, is that really the answer to this question right now?
Yeah, well, I spoke a bit to finding your purpose, right, and being a man of service, and to really discover what it is that breaks your heart so that you can open your heart and help others find their heart through that path. For me, it's like actually making technology work for you as to working for technology. So you're talking about being on your phone and being so caught up and wrapped up in the way that it takes our attention from the here and now. And so I found that in finding work that is flexible, having hours that suit my my rising with the sun, my going to sleep with the sun, my circadian rhythm, how to fit in those moments of going into nature, right? So like yourself, I stayed with another brother, a sacred son, part of the Brocelium network, as we call it, working on a farm in Colorado. It was the first time I'd ever worked with the earth in that way, and it completely opened me up to new potential, new opportunities, and how much it grounded me, how much it gave me an understanding of who I am in the grand scheme of Mother Nature, Mother Earth. And so finding work that is suitable to what it is that lights you up, what stokes your fire.
What would you recommend hearing me talk? But I'm just a representation, I guess, for so many, especially men and boys on the cusp of becoming men by, oh my God, I read The Way of the Superior Man and I got to find my purpose, you know? That's what I heard that it's important, you know? So like what's a step we can take, man? We're lost. So like, or many of us. So what can we do? Just a tiny step. Well, just a tiny.
The way that I started in my 20s was doing shadow work, actually, and I took a inventory of all the aspects of my personality that either I didn't like, I disliked, and the parts of me that I liked, right? So I went and wrote, for example, why am I shy? Why am I awkward? And I put that word down on a piece of paper. It was actually a spreadsheet. And then I said, what was my earliest memory of feeling shy or insecure? And I went back all the way to being a kid, like probably about 4 or 5 years old. And I remember standing behind my dad as he was introducing me to one of his friends and being scared and like holding on to his leg and seeing this man as like a vision and a representative of Superman. He was this huge, tall, burly dude, and I was like, whoa, is it to do with that masculine? Is it to do with this aspect of authority? And then I wrote what was my most recent experience of that shy, awkward, insecure feeling, and I did this for all of those fragments of myself, and it was like, oh, okay, like now I can see this broader bird's eye view of who I am, right? And it gave me like the tools or the fuel to start to work with them, as opposed to work against them, to try and feel like, oh, I'm swimming upstream or walking through sludge, quicksand. You know that feeling sometimes when you just so caught in your head and everything's spinning, and there's like self-analysis and self-doubt and where am I supposed to be here now? And it just completely broke that cycle for me, because I was like, oh, this is where it's located, in that trauma, that wound of being a boy. And then I was able to say, well, no, let me redirect this energy. I said this on a bunch of podcasts. I like to call it energetic kung fu. When I feel like a disturbance in the force, when I feel that little bit of like, what is going on, like that insecurity, whatever it is, how can I redirect that? And so, yeah, really simple ways just to get familiar with yourself in a very like rational, masculine, I'm going to put it into a spreadsheet.
I'm gonna do that, right? Like tonight. Actually, I'm gonna start with that. I think that's. How long you got? Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, you know, just for the fun of it, I'm just gonna start a column here, and was definitely alive is this, it's so. Taking you and the listeners also on a journey through Sacred Sons. So something that came up for me. So basically, I came in locked in with an intention what I want from this weekend, or like this experience, Convergence, right? I was like, that's an issue. It's like the father wound, for example. Okay, like I knew I want to work on this. One of the intentions, definitely addressing that and facing that. And then as time went on, through the training, I was just like, there's something completely different coming up that I had not sort of in any way, shape or form expected. But it was this, when was the last time I was in a group setting like that with other men, fellow men, most of them around my age, maybe a little bit older, some a little bit younger, and I had to find my place in that. That was school, that was kindergarten, that was uni, and I was taken back to that time, and all of the struggles and shadows and insecurities that came along with was a formative time of my life. Actually, the reason why I embarked on this journey in the first place. So basically, I was just like, oh my God, like I'm literally throwing a tantrum just like I did in school. Here now at 29, standing on the field with all of these men, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm going back and I'm doing the exact same thing. Like, why didn't you pick me? Why can I not be fighting for the clan, you know, or for our tribe? Why can I not be the fighter for ritual combat, you know? So, like, these things, man, it was coming up, you know? And I was just like, okay, well, little Maxie, you know, there is something, there's the wound, it's wide open. It was hidden away, but now it's just like, oh my God, it's bleeding. It's really like the flesh is open. I can see it, I can feel it. And I was sitting with that, so I can, like, that would be the first thing I put on the spreadsheet. It's just like this, you know, this really sort of, this big wound, childhood wound of being abandoned and not belonging, which has been a huge catalyst for me to do self-inventory and do work on myself. But it's still, you know, it's by no means like completely gone or healed forever. It surfaced big time just a couple of weeks ago. So that would be the first thing, and I think I can do even further digging. Why is that? where exactly was that coming from, and how can I dance with this right now? How can I work with this? Because I'm sure subconsciously it's affecting my relationships big time. I'm sure it does, you know? Yeah.
Well,
So,
maybe
yeah,
no, it's all
coming
about
up,
I
man.
appreciate that. And, you know, this might not be the forum for it, but I always say that shadow work goes hand in hand with inner child work. And so what you spoke to there is something that I love to bring through, particularly in a one-on-one setting, in circles, in councils as well. So even with brothers witnessing, because I feel like the witnessing aspect is so powerful. That's why it's so good for us all to come together and be seen in our vulnerability, in our pain, in the suffering, the story, to transmute and to actually to free ourselves of that. And so what I would have said in that case, if we were working together one-on-one, is, you know, shut down your eyes, feel in your body where that emotion of rejection is lying, right? A lot of the time it's in the solar plexus. Is there a color? Is there a shape? Is there a texture to that? What movement is it making? Where is it going? How can you describe it? Sometimes I'll say give it a name. Is it someone's name that you can associate with it? Is it a place? Is it something completely made up that has another association? And then to bring yourself back to the original memory of that feeling, because all of a sudden we've taken it out of the mind and we've become embodied with that sensation. We recognize that, okay, there's a safe space here to explore this now. And it goes back to childhood a lot of the time. It might be at your nursery where kids were making fun of you, or you might not have been picked for a certain activity. And so how can we see that child? What's the child wearing? Where is he? Where is little Maxie in his lifespan, right? And then to use that vision to pick him up, to hold him, to say the words of affirmation that you may never received as a kid, and then to take him to a safe place, maybe your inner sanctuary, and to have that as a returning process, meditation, activity, whenever those moments come up, to actually revisit that little part of yourself and give it the love, give it the attention, and even use those words maybe when you wake up in the morning, I am love, or I am loved, whatever those things are, to start to redirect that attention away from the parts that hurt us to the parts that now inform and strengthen us. So yeah, maybe off camera we can do something like that one day.
Yeah. Oh, I love you, brother. Thank you for that. That's beautiful, powerful. Yeah. And I can. It's very like it's alive. I would be able to do this work. I feel it. Like it's like that's a beautiful thing. Like I think, yeah, I can access it. I can give it a name, and I can see it already. Like it's I'm close to it, so it's beautiful. So something else I so desperately wanted to speak with you about. You got a little bit more time?
Yeah, we're good to go.
Yeah? All right. Beautiful. Because so I'm coming out of a 7-year relationship, the first and only one I had. We parted ways in March and shifted my whole orbit, you know, and my old life is and everything that was attached to fell away, because, you know, as you're that long together, there is few things in life that are not connected to this person. And so it was basically work and living situation and constellations and friends and a lot. So as I was falling away, I'm now discovering more and more and unwrapping that gift of that relationship and what it really taught me also in the separation process of it. And now I'm in this state of like, okay, I feel this deep urge of like, wow, I haven't been on my own. I haven't been away energetically from the feminine in a long time. So it was my mom, right, when I was a child, growing up. Then there was girls here and there, and then there was Julia in that case, 7 years. And so now I'm, for the first time, I'm like waking up and I'm just like, whoa, okay, well, where's the feminine energy? Where's the care? Where's that sort of nest that I can bathe in, you know, and all that care and that nurturing, and it's gone. There's a huge void. There's a huge hole, you know, and the like sort of like this instinct of feeling that immediately, I'm staying away from it. And the only reason why I'm making all of this, coming up with all of this and telling and sharing that is because I know that you've been going into celibacy for 1 year, right? And you've been sort of disconnecting from the feminine and sort of like, you know, internalizing. Well, I don't know. That's what I wanted to ask you, what that process was like. Why did you decide to do it? And what did you learn from it? Yeah. That was where I wanted to take
thank you for
this.
sharing that. Actually, I feel that this is really it's important to discuss the relationship between the masculine and the feminine, men and women, men and men, women and women, all of the in between, because for me, relating is like at the heart of human experience. We're all social beings, right? And to make a connection with someone is actually to make meaning, to create some significance in our life, to be seen, to be witnessed, to be heard. You used the phrase mirrors earlier. We are all mirrors for one another, and how beautiful a mirror through the lens of romance and devotion to really see ourselves back in that light. And I relate to the idea of my mother being my first female figure and caregiver, and my sister then being someone who I looked up to, and there was a very difficult relationship at times where my sister would hurt me physically and emotionally, and so I've built this mistrust of the feminine and the idea that I'd never be worthy of a strong, powerful, beautiful woman. And so that played out in my life in many ways, seeking out intimacy with women who were attracted to me because I was able to keep them at arm's length, to build a barrier, a wall, and actually a shield to protect myself from being hurt. And so the reason why in these recent times, over a year now, I've been celibate, was to really feel myself and to feel that intimacy that's within me. And I speak about this in a bunch of podcasts, I'm sure you've heard this, about taking myself out on dates, going to a movie night, going to the cinema on my own, having a lovely meal, pouring a bath, lighting incense, and just really pampering myself actually, and feeling that feminine flow, that creativity, and exploring my own intimacy in tantric ways as well, which is something that I'm starting to offer in terms of my coaching, is how to truly love ourselves as a man with our own touch, to explore those aspects without always necessarily calling for an embodied woman. And so in that process, I've learned that actually I require, or I seek someone who can meet me, who can match me in my expression. And that in the past it was like I was on a pedestal. I was like, I want to be, you know, top dog in this relationship. I want to make sure that if things go awry, that I will always be protected. I won't feel the pain. And now I've invited more pain in my life by being celibate, by turning down potential suitors, by really being firm with my boundaries, by speaking my boundaries out loud sometimes. And that's not an easy thing to do, particularly in the past of being a people pleaser. And so now I've recognized that actually my power is in my seed, for example, semen retention, feeling that presence growing by being able to really stand in that life force, that prana that you talked about, that chi, that mana, and it's made me a lot more now aware and open to the idea of actually calling in a life partner, a monogamous, loving relationship. And I spoke to Adam Jackson, the co-founder of Sacred Sons, about this, and I said, for me it's about teamwork, and he actually said it's about devotion. And I really felt that in the moment. I was like, yes, to be devoted to another, to really like just be of service to a woman, to the mother of my children, is like my life's work in some ways. To fully be able to like build some legacy, to build ancestry, to have a positive change through our seeds, right? To water those plants so they grow strong into trees that stand the test of time. And yeah, man, I'm grateful for you bringing that through, because for me that's leadership. actually, and this is one piece that I've yet to speak to on this podcast, is being self-resourceful, recognizing that everything we have is within, and that truly is when we become leaders, when we're not out there seeking others, looking for guidance. Yes, it's great to have a coach. Yes, it's great to have Sacred Sons as a framework, but it's all about finding those tools because they are forever within us.
I'm learning so much in this conversation. Yeah, thank you. That's yeah. It's right where I'm at as well, and it's so funny, the journey of healing and doing this work is you you see something, and especially when it comes to relationship, like I just came up basically while you were speaking. I was just like, there was a deep process just as you were speaking, and what we just talked about before. I was just like literally applying it straight away, and I was just like, there was just another image I was sculpting of a man I want to be in a relationship. Literally the same thing, which is completely detached from where I am right now.
Can I make a quick
that's
offering? Just a quick one.
Yeah.
You already are
Yes.
that man, Maxi. And this is one thing you spoke to a little bit earlier, and I was asking about, like, is that your essence? Because truly, if you can see it, you are it. And it may feel like at times it's unreachable. It may feel at times you fall off the horse. But ultimately, we are forever riding off into the sunset, right? Just that man at the end of the movie, everything, you know, you talked about the hero's journey, or you referenced it in some ways about going into the cave, right, and returning to, you know, the village or whatever with the elixir. And so that is how I see you. It's like, yes, you're on this journey, yes, you're on the path, and to potentially, you know, as an offering and invitation, drop these expectations of having to be a certain way. You are that person, and yes, it's great to have these visions, these intentions, and at the same time to be able to drop them and be aware that whatever is shaped and formed by life will create the vessel that is Maxi at his highest potential.
Yeah. I received that. And I love horses and I love cowboys, so.
Yeah. And part of me wanted to speak to the Autobahn as well, because you mentioned horse on the street, and I was like, brother, you've got the Autobahn in your backyard. Not that it's necessarily near where you live, but the idea of just going full power, full speed ahead, right? And that there is no limits. And that is a great metaphor for life, is that we at times put on the brakes when we aren't necessarily at full strength, 100%. I spoke about potentially now with the seasons and feeling a little bit insular, a little bit isolated, and yet like I'm going as fast as I can. You're doing the best that you can. You're always on the Autobahn, whether you're in that speed, what did you call it, the sports car, or, you know, right now I'm on the back of a horse.
Yeah.
It's a horse and cart. I'm just picking up the harvest, and I'm about to go hibernate like a bear.
That's it. Hibernating. It's yeah, you know, collecting the force to then release it, and but like with consciousness and with intention.
Yeah. Which is
not
what
just
happens
spread it
after
all
a
over the place
relationship.
and have it scattered all over the place.
Which is what's happening after your relationship. You're taking stock. You're recognizing the man that you want to be in the next relationship. You're building your character. You're recognizing the values. You're realigning with those. You're not necessarily saying that this is, you know, as much as you're like, this is the man that I want to be. It's like, actually, I'm calling these aspects of within. The fact that you can feel and envisage, you can see these, mean they are you. And so yes, you're in your cave. You're in process. But what's being revealed is what's always been there, and that is something to behold. And I'm grateful that I can be on this journey with you, bro.
Yeah, thank you. It's a privilege to also share that in that way, in this container. I feel safe. I feel seen. I feel heard. I feel met. I feel, you know, it's safe to be witnessed in that way. That's why I share it, and that's powerful and beautiful. and it's been something that's newly been introduced to my life, although I always had a innate trust in humans, and always made actually quite pleasant and beautiful experiences whenever opening up. So that's so grateful and thankfully not like a big wound that I opened up and then was hurt, but it was more always met with love, actually. And so I love to also sometimes take these chances and sort of like, hey, there is something I'm working through. Can I just like share that? Can I just bring it up because we speak about it, and then have someone like you meeting that where I'm at? So that's actually that's part of why this is so incredibly fulfilling for me. So thank you also for going there with me, and yeah. So that's beautiful, and something that is along all of this journey, very connected to this, which has for me been also is probably the biggest on a meta scale, one of the biggest challenges there will ever be. And I'm curious to what you say about it, what your experience about this is this dance of being and becoming, right? So being and the presence and the attention and the intention of this moment, of this, the power of the now, all of the teachings, right? Nothing to do, nowhere to go, Vipassana, everything is impermanent, anicca, and all of these beautiful teachings. And then the aspect of, okay, becoming, it's being and becoming, it's both. How do you dance between the two?
Yeah, the way I summarize this is that we're human beings, and in some ways the human is the becoming, that we have all these chapters in the story of our lives, and that is a part of the play, the theatre of existence, and yet what really truly is my essence is the being. And as you mentioned, all those beautiful concepts or aspects of that. And so to marry them is to recognize that we are living in duality, that we are in polarity, that it is at times conflicting. It is a bit of an oxymoron, right? To be a human and a being. To be aware of when, for example, I've bypassed that. I've tried to escape the human suffering, the game, by like, I'm going to go live in a ashram and become a monk, right? Or the times where people maybe don't respect spirituality and the gifts that you can get from taking some time for yourself, meditating, right? Or going into nature and just spending an hour away from your phone. I'm too busy, I don't have the time, I've got too many commitments. So the way that I would recommend or suggest or invite yourself, listeners, etc., is to come back to intention. Actually, that is where I feel like in the heart both of these areas can be met. It's like, I'm going to set an intention to become X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to use what I call our intuition, our gut, the feminine, the masculine, in balance, to make that possible, and at times to navigate when it's not, and to be flexible, to adapt just like nature does, right? And be okay with the fact that we may not arrive at the destination we had in mind. Yeah. We're always going home. That is always the destination to which we're heading, regardless of what path, what road, what bridge we're crossing. We'll always get home eventually.
We're all walking each other home. We do.
That's right.
Yeah, we do. What do we need more of in this world?
Something came up earlier when you're speaking, and I think it's about the words that we use, and to be clear on creating the spells in our life. And I've noticed men, brothers, saying girls, for example. Oh, I hung out with this girl, I'm going on a date with this girl. And ultimately what that spelt for me was more immaturity, actually, more inconsistency. The idea of a woman, a sister, someone in my life who actually exemplifies, exudes the strength and the stability, the creativity, the flow, the expression, the grace that I know so truly within myself. So being aware of the words that we use, and also just being able to like meet someone, particularly someone of the opposite sex, if that's your orientation, to be able to meet them as a friend, as a sister, as a brother, and to be able to just be a safe space, ultimately, to listen, to question, to give them guidance consensually with heart-based connection at the center of it all. Because when I was pre-celibacy, when I was pre-growth, when I was pre-maturity, I saw everything as, in the simplest term, like conquest. Like, how can I get something out of this? How can I make this mine, right? The imperial mind. And I've since recognized the indigenous soul is about the connection. It's about the ahom atakwiyat, and that we are all related. And if I can treat my sister, a potential lover, as a friend, as someone that can come to me in times of need, then it builds a solid foundation that ultimately this world is calling for right now, which is more love, more unity, more bliss, more ease, more grace.
And what do we need less of?
Good question. Less of. I feel like there could be less hate, man. I recognize, again, back to words, I hear people use the word hate a lot. It's like, I hate that. I hate when she does that. And the reality is, do you hate, or is it a dislike? Is it an aversion? And so actually, again, back to words and spells and creating, manifesting our reality, just being aware of using that word hate. And ensuring that the less we use it, the less we identify with hate, the less it shows up in our surroundings.
Beautiful. So we danced within the realms of the masculine and the feminine and the energies, and doing the work with men, especially with the sacred sons. How actually initially we even met, that's how I got to become, like, to enter your orbit, that's how that all came to be. So basically, I just very specifically wanted to ask you this question, like, why is this important to you? And what do you get from this, from working with these men?
What's important for me is breaking the cycle that's been passed down from father to father, from mother to mother. That I'm aware that before I even was born, the work was already beginning. My dad called me Peter because he had 3 best friends growing up by that name, and I've since been aware that that was my first men's circle, that was the first brotherhood. And Peter being rock, the meaning of being of stability, a foundation, being a rock for others in my life, has been my calling ever since I was a kid. I was the peacekeeper, the counselor, the youngest in my family. And so it's just an extension of who I am, and why this work is so important to me, because we are here as brothers, as sisters. We are here to support one another, be each other's rocks. We are here to ultimately help transmute, to shift the story of the victim to the victor and back to the vessel, so that we can truly be home. And that has been my reasoning ever since I worked with my mentor, who said, you're a home walker, you're just walking people home to their own authenticity, to their fearless self-expression. And that's where I stand today.
Yeah, calling in the brothers as well, who are listening. Really want to use this platform here as well. I to the best of my abilities, try to balance it out between the masculine and the feminine, and having sisters on to share the wisdom and the intuition and all of the guidance and all the beautiful gifts that this energy brings. And now with speaking with you, just the calling of for the men to do and come to this work and come to the fire and gather. Like it's just, I'm yet to sort of come up with like a solo episode about my experience of Sacred Sons and Convergence. It's hard, man. I've been pushing it off for week after week because I'm just like, what kind of words would I even use in a spoken medium like this? What words can I speak? Yeah, exactly what you were saying, with intention. How am I speaking about these experiences? I find it challenging, but I just can say it literally spills over. It's like this it's like a dam that's been taken down and the water is just rushing in, and it's just finding its way in every little single compartment of myself as a man, and it's just like finding all the tiny little corners, and it fills them up with accountability and with responsibility, and with like, hey, might want to take a look at that. So yeah, just a big calling in of the brothers to meet people like you. I mean, if that's not, if this conversation and what you have shared so far, it's not, reason enough to sign up, or at least, explore a little bit further. Definitely. Yeah, I wanted to give this some room in this conversation as well, to really invite the brothers in, because it's so powerful and we need it in our time, especially when it comes to conflict.
There's a lot of hurt brothers out there, and hurt people, right? And so just for those who are going through it at the moment, know that we relate. We really truly do. I have felt what it's like to feel rejected, to be disconnected, to be suicidal, to have dealt with trauma, tragedy, and it took me looking at myself through the lens of a group of men to realise that I wasn't alone, and actually there's strength in coming together in a good way, in a healthy way. And at times it may look like crying, it may look like laughing. You said sitting around the fire, singing, breaking bread, even putting on the boxing gloves and challenging, sharpening one another, dancing in the ring. And that's something that Sacred Sons is really unique in the men's work world at offering. It's a full-bodied experience where we can dive deep in a safe container and come out the other end with men who truly see us and hear us and can meet us, like you said. And I'm so grateful, first and foremost, for you for calling this in, for this growing connection, this growing friendship, and for all the men out there who will hear this and feel this and be able to come back home to themselves eventually.
With that being said, I wanted to ask you, what are you looking forward to? What are you looking forward to bring into the world? We've briefly spoken about it. There is stuff arising. There's fruits to bear. So I want to open up the space, fill it with whatever is coming through.
I'm stoked to continue this journey with Sacred Sons, bringing through another European tour at the end of 2023, Copenhagen, Barcelona, potentially Amsterdam and London. We're also opening up our coaching service called The One. So I'll be one of a group of leaders in Sacred Sons who'll be offering one-on-one coaching for the year of 2024. As well as, we've got lots of great things coming up in 2024 with Sacred Sons, going to Australia, potentially South Africa as well. We'll be in Wales in May for those in Europe. And for myself, doing more of my own one-on-one coaching. I've got a program for the beginning of 2024 for those who really want to start the calendar year in a good way, with intention, on track, on purpose, of service. I've worked with women now as well, so starting to branch out to the feminine, to sisters, recognizing that there are some who would love to do this masculinity alchemy work, and I feel like I'm well placed to bridge that gap at this point in my life.
Wow, that didn't know about that. That's wow. That's I spoke with Matoska about it, and he was like, I love doing men's work, and then there is working with like both. How incredible would that be? You know, can we create spaces for both to come together to witness each other? Imagine that. And so, beautiful. It's actually, there's a slight overhang of feminine female listeners. So yeah, for all of the sisters out there, let's get in touch with Peter. That's beautiful. Oh man, awesome. Happy to hear that. That's beautiful.
Thank you, brother, for this opportunity.
All right. Well,
all the love.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. I mean, wow, it's been an absolute pleasure. And that was, wow, time flew by. Well, you have fun, doesn't it? Hello, beautiful listener. You have made it all the way through. Thank you so much. And before you leave, please, you can support me in a very powerful way in 10-15 seconds. Go over to your podcast app now and rate Going Out Looking In with 5 stars. And while you're at it, please make sure to also subscribe and follow the podcast so you never miss a new episode. It really helps me in ways I cannot even begin to describe here, and it allows me to, in the future, reach even more people and conduct even more powerful interviews. With that being said, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Move well. Much love.